my athletes are always the worst when it comes to like progressing when they don't have something on the horizon. The last thing I want to be is, a newspaper, right? Newspaper is dying. Why? Because people don't get a paper newspaper. I'm probably a different owner than I was in the first 4 or 5 years as I was figuring out and thinking everyone was trying to steal my kids. I think I have a very different mindset these days. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheer Biz Podcast. Today, we're talking about the fact that I always thought one of my local competitors closing was a good thing until I learned this. Now, before we get into the episode, make sure you go to Cheer Gym Owners on Facebook and you have joined that group. And you've also joined All-Star Cheer Coaches and Owners. If you're a coach or a coach and owner, make sure you're in those groups. We have amazing discussion going on. And get registered for our conference in Dallas, June 20th through the 22nd of 2025. We have tracks for every single member of your gym, aside from the parents and the athletes. So coaches, admin, managers, owners, everyone. We've got something great for them. So make sure you get registered for that conference. You are not going to want to miss it. I'm going to be there, and I am super excited about the classes I'm going to be teaching. So let's get into the episode. I recently talked to an owner who was kind of doing the happy dance because one of their local competitors, the rumor is that they were closing. And I'll be honest, I haven't had this as a positive in my mind for a while. And it was because back in the day, I learned a number of reasons why my local competitor closing, in my mind, is not a good thing. There's some very specific reasons for this. And certainly, are there times where it's like, you want the competition to close? The theory is that, the competitors are going to close and you're going to get all the kids and it's going to be great for your gym. It's going to grow you. And, sometimes there's bad blood between competitors. I've actually really prided myself on trying not to have bad blood with competitors, but it still has happened where they've felt adversarial towards me. And even still to this day, I know there's gym owners that maybe don't love me locally. And oftentimes I think that we could probably patch it up, and I would be happy to, if they're listening to this, go and get a cup of coffee and chat some things out, because ultimately, I'm probably a different owner than I was in the first 4 or 5 years as I was figuring out and thinking everyone was trying to steal my kids. I think I have a very different mindset these days as I've learned and grown and spent a lot of time traveling the country and working with different gyms and helping different gym owners grow their businesses. And I've learned some really important lessons. And ultimately, one of these lessons is that my competitors closing locally is not a good thing. And in fact, I don't like hearing any gyms closing, with very, very few exceptions. There's been the occasional gym where there were really bad things going on where I was like, yep, I think it's good that they're not in the industry anymore. But those have honestly been few and far between. And I hear many more gyms that I respect, or I think were in it for the right reasons, but not running the best businesses and therefore had to close. And so I always hate hearing that. So number one, the first point is that more gym closures can sometimes mean that there is market instability. Your industry shrinking is really not great news for anyone. So while there may be some short-term gain, there is concern when the market is showing that it doesn't have support for your product. And I think that it is, I'm going to probably touch on this a couple different times, but I don't ever like seeing the market shrink. I want to see the market grow, and ideally grow across the industry, but I want to see the market be growing. I want to see there be a demand for the product, because the last thing I want to be is, a newspaper, right? Newspaper is dying. Why? Because people don't get a paper newspaper, and the only newspapers that are surviving now are selling, subscription model that you get on your phone. But I don't want to be that with a cheer gym, and seeing gyms and this service industry, when you see gyms closing, especially in your area, that can mean that there is potentially some market instability, whether it be just market instability for youth sports or service industries or things like that. But it can be a sign that I don't love. So in general, and this is kind of the number one broad point, is that market instability is a bad thing and the market shrinking is a bad thing. We don't want the market to shrink. Number two is that less competition can mean fewer eyes on your product, so on your category that you are in. So in the cheer gym space, one of the things that we battle is, as competitive cheer, we are less known than other sports. People instinctively think of getting their kids involved in soccer, in gymnastics, in basketball, in football, baseball. Those are nationally known programs that people think of when they think of youth sports. And when they think of cheerleading, they often think of it as a fun sideline activity, but they don't think of it from the perspective of tumbling and athletic progression quite as frequently. And so if you are in a small market where people don't know the sport of cheerleading, then actually having more gyms is oftentimes a better thing because there are more people participating across the spectrum. There is more likely that you're going to be known as a commodity that people can consume. Additionally, if I'm marketing, like I'm paying to market cheerleading, and someone sees my ad, but then sees that another business is closer to them, it is actually possible that my ad to, get your kids enrolled in competitive cheerleading because of all these benefits, and then they Google competitive cheerleading and they see that I'm 30 miles away from them, but you're 2, they might come check out your facility first. And vice versa. So if people are putting cheer out into the world, it is likely to build awareness for the sport, and it's actually going to be better for my business as a whole to have lots of people putting it out there, because the enemy of growth is scarcity, is people not knowing you exist. You're not going to get new customers if people don't know about the sport, if people don't know that cheerleading is a thing. And while I think that there are some areas like mine where cheerleading is very well established, it's not quite the same. I know there are lots of you who are operating in small areas or with, in counties with as many people as I have in one city. And if you have a couple products there, it's actually likely that there's going to be more people hearing about it, more people talking about it. And honestly, the word of mouth of people just talking about competitive cheer is better than it being very, very focused on just being one singular location. So that's another reason that I don't love hearing that competitors are closing, because it's just less people in the sport. It's less people talking about the sport. It's less people advertising the sport in my local area. And I want everyone and their mom talking about competitive cheerleading and how great it is. Number 3 is that customers don't automatically migrate to you. This is a misconception that people, because gym A closes, that they're now all going to come to my gym B because they were there using the product and now they want to continue. There is going to be some people who do, for sure. The people who are in love and want it. You're then going to have people who maybe eventually will, and then you're going to have people who just, get a bad taste in their mouth and they're disappointed when the closure happens, or they're not happy, or maybe they just don't want your product. So the theory that 100% of the clientele are going to come over to your business is not actually accurate. On top of that, sometimes getting someone else's clients is not always a good thing, because your culture and their culture might be very different. And now they're coming over and having to learn and integrate into your culture. And that can potentially have a negative impact on your culture, or it can make your life more difficult as you try and educate this influx of people who are used to doing things potentially a very different way. And that could be a very different way, like at that gym, attendance wasn't a big deal, and now at your gym, attendance is a huge deal and you lose a spot. It could be at that gym, they went out of business. Okay, so I'm going to make assumptions about fictional gym. That gym maybe didn't do the best job making sure people paid their bills. And now these people come over and are not great at paying their bills with you either. And that creates friction and a problem for you. So I don't always love getting people from a gym that just closed because you're adopting that gym's problems and you didn't create any of them. And like I said, they don't automatically all come to you anyways. So it's not like there's just going to be this immediate transfer over of clientele to you. They're going to have to make that decision of whether or not they want to come to you as a business. Number 4 is you lose a benchmark. You lose a motivator. Having competition is good. In my opinion, it is going to force you to be better. When you have a local competitor, you have a reason to be better. You have a reason to create efficiencies. You have a reason to market and promote and iterate and improve your product. It's just like the concept of, the idea that monopolies are bad. Well, the reason that monopolies are bad is because there's no competition in the market. So prices can become negative for the customer. And also there's really no reason to iterate and improve because you don't have to compete against anyone because everyone has to just go to you. And this, I think, is the enemy of growth. So I actually like having a competitor because that competitor keeps you pushing. It keeps you motivated. And so I like having a local competitor for that exact reason. And I have a number of local competitors, and I think it's fantastic because I think we all push each other to be better. And this is often why you see states like Texas, where you can pretty much throw a rock and hit a cheer gym. And yes, gyms do close in Texas, but a lot of gyms see steady and consistent growth, and they're iterating and they're getting better and they're improving because they have to. Because if they don't, then they're going to die. And so competition is great for growth. And this is why I don't think it's awesome when a gym closes, because people are much more likely to push and grind and do the hard things when they're concerned about closing, when they're concerned about losing. Just think about your athletes. My athletes are always the worst when it comes to like progressing when they don't have something on the horizon. So this year, for instance, we didn't compete in the month of February. And the amount of laziness that I had for the first 2 weeks of February was outrageous. There were so many missed practice. I can't make it to practice. It's not a big deal because we all feel relaxed because there's no threat. There's no danger. There's no like the competition is right around the corner. It's when that happens that people start to buckle down. Having competition is a good thing. You want to be pushed. I actually have this conversation with my athletes on 2 different ways, particularly my level 4 team. There's a local level 4 program. I've talked about them a million times on the podcast. They're small senior 4, and we compete against them for bids. This year, they beat us out for a full paid. We got a partial paid early. We beat them, and then they beat us for a full paid. And my kids were frustrated and they were like, it's not fair. They're small, we're medium. We have to put up more stunts, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I love that they exist, you guys. Like, and now they have a good relationship, which got patched up this year. I think is super cool. But I'm like, I love that they exist. I've always loved that they exist because we push each other. Like my kids have a reason to be better because there are these great level 4 programs in the Pacific Northwest. If there was no one and they were just showing up and getting auto at-large bids and, being able to beat teams that weren't as good as that, like there was no real competition, they don't have to push. So I like having teams that are really good in my division because it keeps us pushing. It keeps us grinding. It gives us a reason to have to work hard. You don't have to work hard when things are easy. And so I'm a big believer that having local competitors is a good thing because of that, because as a business owner, it keeps me pushing and even it gives me ideas, right? They do something and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. How could I do something similar? How could I improve upon that? There is more than enough, especially in my area, there are more than enough kids for all of our gyms to have 500 plus athletes in them, competitive, and still not even be a drop in the bucket of the local amount of kids. I mean, my local, just singular City of Beaverton School District has like 45,000 kids that go to school in the Beaverton School District. I'm totally happy with like 1%. Like that's pretty good. If I can get 2% of that, sick. Like that is fantastic. And that's just that one district. I have 2 other districts. I've got Hillsborough and Tigard and Portland that have billions of kids. And then we've got 12, like there's so many kids in our area that it's like, I can't actually service the entire area. It's impossible. So there have to be competitors to keep the sport growing. Number 5, and this is kind of going into that point is you may have been basing your actions off of them. So if you've been competitor focused, then you've been, oh, I need to market because they're marketing. Oh, I need to level my teams appropriately because they're leveling their teams appropriately. Oh, I need to hire great choreographers because they're hiring great choreographers. I need to do these things because they're pushing too. And so again, they inspire you to be better. So having that local competition, I think just lifts you up far more than it tears you down. Now, I know that some people feel there's a negative environment within your competitors. Man, work it out. I am in this industry a lot. I talk to a lot of different gym owners. And have I talked to the occasional gym owner that's like, I will happily recruit from another gym? Yeah, I have. And we don't align. But the majority of gym owners I talk to, like, they just want their gym to grow. They just want to be successful. And what's happening when you see them recruiting is, or you see recruiting in the industry, what I see the most is, one, they may not know they're recruiting. Two is that they're just trying to win. They're just trying to be competitive and win competitions. And I think it stings a little bit more when the recruiting is a local competitor. And there's, of course, very unethical ways to do it. So I'm not saying that everyone's perfect or rainbows and sunshine. I had a conversation with a very famous gym last year that tried to, and I don't know that they did, their athletes suggested that one of my Worlds athletes leave like 3 weeks before Worlds and come join their team. And my athlete almost did. And I had a conversation with the coach and I was like, hey, this is pretty messed up. Like, you can't do that. And I'm not going to release them. And just so you know, that's not okay. And the coach was like, well, we would never and it came out that it was the kids who were doing it. Either way, if you have been using that as motivation, that motivation is now gone. That inspiration is now gone. And so I think having local competitors just makes you better. My last point, and I've touched on this before, is that if your local competitor is growing and you're growing and the other gyms are growing, then you're all growing. There's more kids in the sport, and more kids in the sport of cheerleading, everyone, is a good thing. It's a good thing. We want there to be thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of kids in your local area doing competitive cheer. It will be better for your business. The less kids in cheer, the worse it is. So we really, really want that. You've heard me probably say before, it's not my saying, a rising tide raises all ships. And I truly believe that. If the sport of cheerleading is growing, there are more kids doing youth cheer, all-star cheer, high school cheer, like all together, cheer is growing. We're all growing. And some people don't have that mindset. They're like, oh, well, I want them to close. And, oh, well, I don't care about that high school program. Well, that high school program, those are the kids who are going to come to your gym and tumble. Those are the kids who are going to need to get their back handspring or their tuck or whatever for tryouts the next year. Those are the kids that are going to come to you for additional training and private lessons, even if they're not on your team. Like, realize that anyone in the sport of cheerleading, whether they're at another gym, at a high school, in a youth program, they're all a potential future client if they're in your local area. And so having more competitors, having more people in the sport is ultimately a good thing the vast majority of the time. So although you're not in control of your competitors and they are potentially going to close and go out of business, in general, your competitors closing is not a good thing. You want the sport to be growing. You want everyone to know about it, and you want everyone to want to participate in it. And you want to be so full that you're like, hey, go down the street to them. They're also really good. And I've done that. I've referred people to other gyms and said, hey, what we do here, it's maybe not the best fit, or maybe we're full on this level team, but I know they have an opening and they're looking for a base. So why don't you go there? Right? It's okay. You can all grow together. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm sure there's probably some people going, no, Dan, you're wrong. And that's okay. I'm not saying you can't be excited about the potential to get more kids in your gym. It's just a short-term gain. And long-term, I like having lots of people growing the sport of cheerleading together because I can't do it all by myself. So I like there being lots of gyms. Now, do I want a competitor that's open right next door to me? Not particularly, right? Like, I think there is some things to be said about respecting areas and not being too close to others. And there's buildings that I looked at before we are getting ready to move into our next one. There's building I've looked at that I've been like, that's too close. Like, I actually once looked at a building right next door to one of my competitors and we were like, no, sir, to our realtor. We are not doing that. Could we have both survived? Probably, but it certainly wouldn't have been kosher. But I will tell you that I think it's Cheer Athletics, and I think it's Cheer Athletics Frisco and there's another program, and I'm totally brain farting on the name. I should have been prepared. They're like Cheer Express. I think they're like across the street from each other. Like literally their doors like face each other or something like that. There's a gym like that, and both of the gyms are huge. That's crazy, right? If they can do it, and you're going to be like, oh, it's Texas. Maybe. I mean, they definitely have a larger population base, but like if they can do it and they can both be growing and both be thriving, and if you watch, those gyms like are pushing each other to be better all the time, because Cheer Express is really, really good. Cheer Athletics is really, really good. They're always pushing each other to be better. Having competitors is ultimately good. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for listening. As always, make sure you get registered for our conference. And with that, we'll catch you on the next episode.